So when we talk about existential nihilism, we are addressing a fundamental core principle that underlies all the seemingly different schools of nihilism. To me, honestly, despite the treatment I've given to these categories, I find it sort of silly and absurd that nihilism has been broken up and classified in a fragmented manner as such, as if the deconstruction of the various different inventory items of existence deserve their own distinctions. To me, this is the result of the work of non-nihilists, as the true nihilist wouldn't have any such purpose for constructing these differentiations, the motivation of such being contrary to the very cause of nihilism in the first place. The nihilist's mission is to uncover the truth of existence, and does so by means of stripping away all that is part of the facade, in order to reveal that which is rudimentary essence, aka the truth, or the reality, and not illusion. We can draw the line of the true and the untrue at the event horizon of awareness. We are that which precedes the event horizon of awareness. Beyond this horizon is all collapsed wave function. It's hard to even begin to be able to realize and understand this line, because the attention is trained to not recognize it, to gloss over it with default oversight. The crux of the conditioning, and to remain stuck on the perceptibles. And incidentally, this is the same kind of conditional lock that prevents one from realizing the nature of a dream whilst they are dreaming, which prevents lucidity and keeps the clarity of awareness in a fog until after one has awoken. And I know that even with this reference, not many have an experiential understanding of dream lucidity. But even without such clarity, at the very least we can understand that a dream is not an actual reality, but a construct of an imagination. The dream experience is therefore an existential medium. Hence, the only real reality is the awareness, which is the same again and again in countless dreams. In other words, in the dream, what was real was not the persona, the narrative, the perceptions, the feelings, other beings, animals, or creatures, or even the entire world. It was always and always will be just the awareness. And so, why is this common everyday realization about the nature of dreams so difficult to carry over into the context of the so-called waking state? Because the attention is getting stuck on perceivables, and as such, the truth of reality becomes unclarified. It's very hard to refocus the attention when it's committed and heavily invested in identifications and associations, aka attachments. But let's look into these binding ties that anchor the awareness in the illusion. We identify with the world, but the world does not make us what we are, as evidenced by the fact that we could feasibly be put into another world and still be the same person. So you are not the world or any environment. So what about our thoughts, ideas, and concepts? Are we our thinking minds? You have plenty of intellectual data stored in your brain, but does any of it make you who you are, really? Some may argue that it does, but this is more conditioning, more identification by attachment. You could drop plenty of ideas and still be you. You could change your thoughts and still be you. You could rearrange, add, or remove your concepts and still be you. So you are not your thoughts, ideas, and concepts. Maybe we are the perceptual senses. Everything we can speak about is the result of either sight, smell, hearing, taste, or touch, so perhaps our identities can be defined by perception. For those who identify as such, I strongly recommend sensory deprivation tanks. After some experience with these, you will soon know firsthand that you are not the senses, as also further evidenced by a blind man or deaf person. The adding or removal of any sensory instrument does not make us any more or less ourselves. Okay, so what about our feelings and emotions? Do these solidify some kind of identity? How so, when, again? Feelings and emotions come and go, change and fluctuate constantly. None of them ever remaining constant, and yet we still remain who we are throughout them all. So we are not our feelings and emotions. What about our families, our names, our ancestral lineage, and bloodlines? Does this define us? This is yet another association. Would we not still be who we are if our family was removed? Would we become something else if we changed our name? If we woke up tomorrow in some other person's life on the other side of the world, would we not still be an individual? So we are not our families or lineage or name. Then, of course, comes the physical body. Surely, if anything, we must be the physical body, no? How so exactly? If we removed your foot, would you still be you? What about your hand, or your liver, or your left buttock? If you are still you, despite the removal of various body parts or organs, then obviously you cannot be the physical body either. Then so finally, what about the consciousness, aka the ego or the persona? Without a doubt, this must be what we are. For what else is left? The consciousness could be said to be the culmination of all of the identifications and associations combined. What we sum up to be a self by adding the world, our thoughts, our perceptions, our emotions, our family history, and our physical bodies together. We call being aware of this confection the consciousness. But if none of the components of this culmination are a true self, then how could the amalgamation of these components be a true self either? By assuming such, we've only just made the ego that much more difficult to untangle. But untangling the persona is crucial to self-recognition. And how is this done? Deconstruction, subtraction, detachment, reduction, emptying, nihilism, destroying untruths and tearing down false foundations. When you have disassociated and unidentified with all the false veneers, you will have arrived at that which could be called the true self, the actual reality, that which is always so, that which you are, pure potentiality. This is the superpositional substratum upon which all distinctions of self-awareness are produced. This is why, from this space of clear, open awareness, it can be clearly known that value, meaning, and purpose are existential and not otherwise. And to further clarify existentiality, this means that these features are created aspects that only have a setting within the momentary facets of being. This is the truth of reality. And yet this truth is called nihilism. Why? Because of the apparent disapproval of control freaks and dogma defenders that don't want you to free yourself from your mind enslavement. People are so much easier to manipulate and command when they assume, in ignorance, that value, meaning, and purpose are pre-existing factors that one must find and then adhere to. And don't worry, you won't have to look very far to find them. For there are plenty of leeches lined up, ready to usher you into a nice little role of subservient obedience, where you will be in the perfect position to be commanded and used for the greedy, selfish purposes of power-hungry resource pigs. So fear not. If you are unwilling to create your own value, meaning, and purpose, one will be happily supplied to you. If you find the notion of value, meaning, and purpose not being objective, depressing, relax. One can be penetrated into you. But if you are one of the few among us that doesn't have a problem with the truth of existentiality, then know that your source is potentiality, your destination is potentiality, and whatever comes in between is completely up to you. You come from nothing, are headed towards nothing, so any value, meaning, or purpose that arise are going to be a result of your own directed action, duty, dedication, and responsibility. Meanings are not derived from theoretical philosophy, but are a consequence of function and interaction. When it is said that value, meaning, and purpose are not intrinsic or inherent, this is only true in so much as it applies to value, meaning, and purpose residing objectively. Value, meaning, and purpose are, in fact, inherent and intrinsic, but only so contextually. That is to say, relatively and subjectively so. And I know why this prospect is daunting and undesirable to most people. For the realization that life is without meaning, purpose, and value to be found pre-existing means that, of itself, life is pretty absurd and can be outright maddening. If one is searching for such engagements externally, which will often lead to angst and utter despondency in the face of the futility and pointlessness of it all. But it is only futile and pointless because you have invested in value judgments based on misplaced assumptions and erroneous conclusions. Drop them. What other kind of validation do your values, meanings, and purposes need beyond your own commitment to them? For an atheist, I can't see where any of this causes an issue. If there is no God, then whereof would any of these aspects be derived? The only real people that this would seem to cause a problem for would be theists. People that are obsessively worried about God and the possibility that they wouldn't be serving and obeying him properly by not blindly following the words in a book written by men of antiquity. What else could it be? I know. You want to be good and make it into heaven. How so profoundly deep of you. But understand this. If you are good because of the promise of reward or the threat of punishment, you are not good for the right reasons. There is no sky daddy out there to give a blowjob to, so get over it. Take responsibility for your own existence. There doesn't need to be emotional anguish over the fact that there isn't any objective force out there supplying value, meaning, and purpose. This agency is found within yourself and can become a great wellspring of inspiration towards defining your own value, meaning, and purpose. But just keep in mind that creating your own value, meaning, and purpose isn't an indication that your value, meaning, and purpose are necessarily justified. And this is why we do need a very simple universal moral compass, despite morality also being a construct. It doesn't automatically follow that creating value, purpose, and meaning that victimizes other sentience is permissible. It isn't. This is why we shouldn't look past the importance of the existential agency of the entire nihilistic foundation and understand that, in the face of paradoxical absurdity, it is up to you to define and make of yourself what you will. For no amount of external searching will amount to more than quiet desperation and frustrating futility. But, despite the lack of objective supplementation, creating your own intentions within nothingness isn't a license to violate another existential agency. If you can figure out why this is, as it is an absolute moral distinction relative to sentience that no existential consciousness wants to be victimized against their will, then you will have a less difficult journey ahead, and will be doing your part to bring peace and harmony to our shared existential paradigm.